Testing, testing, testing. Okay, that's all working. Okay. Right. Let's be about this then. Hello. Uh, what am I gonna be doing today? Well, we are going to do some games design. We are taking a break from Werewolf because it's just a lot of tables and I want to be in headspace for it. That'll probably be next week. Next week will be tables. Next week will be tables. Right, so what are we working on? We're going to work on our second project. The second project is one that I have lately been dancing around the idea of for a bit. Um, so, for context, I basically about November-ish, October-ish, November-ish, started having ideas of how to update 5th edition combat, mainly trying to make it more theatre of the mind accessible. Um, well, what happened was I was starting to work on that. So, for those who haven't been aware, I have had a mysterious winter project, and the winter project is generally where I can do something that if I throw it against the wall, I don't have to come back to it if it's a terrible thing, but it gives me experience. It gives me a chance to do a project, experiment. If it sticks, it sticks. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Well, then the OGL thing happened, and that's been a trash fire that only gets worse and worse and worse. And it continues to get worse. More shit came out yesterday, about how they're fucking over people who use D&D Beyond. So we're just adding to the shit show at this point. Yeah, apparently, the sources are now going that they want to try and like make it that D&D Beyond subs cost about $30 a month. And whereas currently you have open access to Homebrew, which is good because their current thing is if you own the physical book, but you don't own the digital book, you can recreate whatever you own physically through Homebrew in the digital. Well, they're going to make it that unless you have paid access on the subscriptions for D&D Beyond, you can't do the Homebrew thing. So it's like, it's rumour, but it's something that, considering recent events of Wizards, I wouldn't put past them. So kind of all the OGL stuff happened, and it turned a hey, let's do a winter project where my goal is let's just improve D&D and see what I would do with it, and I'll throw it away, put it in the trash at the end of winter. It's now turned into hey, I should probably just take this and run with it and make an actual D20 system that is designed, you know, to be better. Um, Common things, including stuff like I would like to make it that this game is generally more accessible and the rules are more accessible and that we don't have the problematic shit. So yeah, that's how it's going. If I'm not working on werewolves, I'm working on a new core system. Um, was not how I expected 2023 to go. But then again, I wasn't expecting Wizards to literally blow up the golden goose. I still can't understand it. Wizards literally had a golden goose. They just had to sit and watch it lay golden eggs. That's all they had to do. I know they wanted to monetize it, but I'd be like, okay, you're just going to make more t-shirts, right? And more merchandise, video games, movies, TV. You're going to make your money that way, right? Not you're going to look at the golden goose, shoot it, cut it open, and go, where's the golden egg? Oh shit. So yeah, yeah, that's fun. So what am I doing? I'm kind of working on this. So where we are currently, yeah. So currently, I mean, there are aspects of this game that are going to be different. My perfect world, my absolute perfect design would be that whatever I design at the end, you can have a little conversion and you could use whatever you had in the 5e and use it for this. I do not promise this for a very important reason. Um, how I'm designing it is I'm going with what is a skill roll, not even what is a skill roll. What is a standard roll when a player encounters an obstacle, and then from that we are working outwards. As you will notice, character generation is not actually at the top of my thing. It's not the top priority for me, and because to me, part of the importance of how something works, how you the import you put on different things is how you express it in your rules. So for me, the most important thing, it isn't here make a character, it's here is how the rules work. Because you can make a character however you want at the end of the day. You could ignore all my character creation rules. You could ignore the classes, you could ignore everything, but you could still use the core conceit of the mechanics and then work out there from yourself. So, players are the people who play your game. A player who has decided to take the role of running the game and its narrative. Um, they are game guides. And it was not me who came up with game guides. I can't remember who did now. Was it Bissell Bruce? Might have been a Bissell. You can see it on Twitter because there's a bit where I ask whether I can use it. And I love the phrase game guide because game guide for me better describe a dungeon master is kind of, you're in charge. You're the important person at the table. Game guide to me, the key thing for them is yes, they're the person who plays all the NPCs, but they're also a player at the table. And they and the players have control of the narrative. So that's why I like the phrase game guide. It does unfortunately have the acronym of GGs, but oh well. Um, Obviously, the game uses d4s, 6s, 8s, 10s, 12s, 20s, and 100s. And if a character comes across a difficulty, they are asked to make a trait test. Yes, I have stolen this from my werewolf game. I like how werewolf game does this. I'm going to steal it. So, effectively, it would be a game guide would go to you, the player, and go, you want to open the door, how do you want to open the door? And the player will then go, I would like to open the door by kicking it, at which point they will go, okay, make a physique trait test. Or they could go, I would like to pick the lock, at which point they go, make an agility trait test. The key thing of how the things work is it is always a d20 roll plus a character trait, and then there is a numerical bonus. And that total value is the total test value, TTV, and you want your TTV to be greater than or equal to the test target, a TT. Now, what's additional bonuses? Well, that's things like bonus for skill, a bonus for using an item. It's instead of having it like D&D has it where it's this roll, this roll, this roll, it's just everything is a trait test. All D20 rolls are trait tests. It's just the additional bonuses are determined by other things. So If you roll a natural one on any trait test, you automatically fail. No matter what your bonus is, you will always fail a natural one. But the key thing is you fall forwards. So you get a mark of fate, which is basically I haven't quite worked out what the full mechanic is yet, but it's effectively it's in failing your next you will learn from that mistake, you will push forward. It's not that we're going to gate access to something, we're just going to allow you to fail forwards. And I'll probably put in some advice because half of this is also game guide advice. So what I'm going to include is a bunch on when to call a trade test. Because the other thing is, if you roll a natural 20, it automatically succeeds. The most important thing, though, is a game guide should never call a test if they do not want the character to succeed. If you cannot allow the characters to succeed, don't call the trade test, just say it's impossible. And give the reason it is impossible. A trait test can only be called by the game guide. If a character rolls, they are not counted before it has been called for, then the roll is not counted. One thing I'm tempted to do is to make better guys, because currently if you look at D&D and quite a few RPGs, it's like this is easy, medium, hard, extra hard, impossible dice rolls and their targets, and they never change. They're just kind of set. What I would probably like to do is, because characters get more bonuses over time, is try and go like, if it's this level, you should consider difficulty like this. But then also, what I also want to kind of instill in the DM section is, if a character fights a kobold, they might befriend the kobold, but if they fight a kobold at level 1 and it's hard, at level 15 it should be easy to fight that same kobold. It shouldn't. You should never use the kind of the progressive gradient of difficulty just to make everything the same difficulty, if that makes sense. You can do that. It might be very specific to your game, but as a general rule, how I want to write the game guide advice is, while I will give a scaling difficulty curve based on level and the skill bonuses, what you shouldn't do, what you should look at it is should this be difficult for a character at that level? If yes, then use sliding scale. If it should be difficult for a low level character but not a high level character, then don't make them roll. Just say, yeah, you have progressed. This is no longer an obstacle to you. Because if a basic wooden door is always the same difficulty no matter their level, even if the character's really good at kicking down doors, they've got levels and kicking down doors. That feels crap on the player who's specialised. That doesn't mean there should be no challenge, and this is where I've got to get the language right. I'm not saying there should ever be no challenge, but I'm also not saying that players' progression shouldn't be thinged. And the other thing is, there is what is known as skill mastery, which is basically there is a skill bonus. For those who play D&D, this will be very similar to proficiency bonus, and it's if you have learnt a skill, you get a skill bonus. If you have mastered a skill, you get to double that skill bonus. I'm tempted to add legendary as like this is a thing you can theoretically get at 20th level, is legendary, where you get to triple in one skill a skill bonus. But the key thing is and I'll probably go, this is what a normal person should do. This is what a learned person skill difficulty should do. This is what a master, this is what a legendary. And then basically go, this is this level, this is this level, this is this level. Because, and the one thing I also want to get across is, if something is difficult for a master, it probably shouldn't be doable by someone who's got no skill. Whereas if someone is learned, it might be incredibly difficult, near impossible, if it's difficult for a master. And for someone who's legendary at a skill, it should probably be not that challenging. So you also want to consider that when considering your DCs, is if it is a locked door, who's the lock made for? How powerful is the person? If they're fighting the big bad, they probably made their door that it can't be, broken by a layman. But if you're a master thief, well, you've encountered difficult locks before. This will be a challenge, but you can do it. And that's the kind of things I want to set. I want to set it where a game guide should consider all of the factors, which is what are the character skill levels, what is the skill level I want to take, and stuff like that. So one of the things is falling forward. So you always get a mark of fate when you fail by rolling a natural 1. The other thing I would like to do is try and give some guidance of try to keep falling forward being a thing. Perhaps instead of saying you don't pick the lock. If someone rolls a 1, maybe go, okay, you pick the lock. Because the thing you also need to consider is what is the narrative? What are the players trying to do? What are you trying to do? If the players fail, are they going to come up with a creative solution? Are they going to be frustrated? Are they going to abandon this entire adventure? You need to consider these things. And one thing you can consider doing, and shouldn't be afraid to do, is failing forwards. So, yes, you failed the roll. But instead of saying you don't unlock the door, it's you unlock the door, but your thief's tools broke. Or you unlock the door, but you did set off the alarm. You did this, but then something else. You did this, but something happens in consequence. The story gets to move forward, but there is more obstacles in your way. And that's what I want to get across to game guides. And then inspired successes, if you roll a 20, you automatically succeed. As I said, if you don't want someone to succeed, you should never ever make them roll. You should just say it's impossible. Because to roll is to say there is a chance of success. And not only that, to roll is to waste people's time. Because if you think about it, the person's got to get the dice. Then there's the physical act of rolling, or clicking the button on the VTT, or typing in the roll command. And there might be like, if they're using a VTT, what's the roll command? What's it again? Blah, 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 blah. And then you get the thing, and then they have to do the maths. And then they give you the result. And then if you never wanted to succeed, you just look at the person and go, oh, it didn't succeed. And it could be like they rolled a natural 20 and have a +6 in the skill, but oh, it didn't succeed because it was impossible the entire time. All you've done is waste people's time. So I would rather give game guides the advice of just don't roll. Just don't do it. And of course, in combat, it would be a critical hit. And yes, you have inspired success. So, what I am tempted to do with inspired, what I would like to do with inspired is you don't get, it's not like inspiration in D&D. What I want it to be is if you roll a natural 20, you get to do something cool. So I've got to come up with it. I don't want to kind of do the stunt system from Fate, from the age system, but it might be a bit like the stunt system of age system. I've got to try and work out how I'd want to do it. But effectively, it's like, depending on the role you're doing, something happens. Either it could be if you are searching for information, you uncover more information. It could be if it's in combat, maybe you get to not only do a critical hit, but you get to do a cool maneuver as part of it. Effectively, you get a cool special action. And one of the things I want to do is I want to give you more class stuff. Because one of the big problems of the game is obviously level 1, there's very little to do. So what I want to do is give classes not necessarily more class features they have to keep on top of, but kind of go, okay, if you roll a critical hit, you can do a cool thing, and that will be there'll be a generic thing, and then there'll be something cool each class can do. Effectively, it becomes part of combat that you get a cool thing. And that's what I want to kind of do. I want to have some of these mechanics where your class choice actually matters, and even your multi-class choices matter, because if you think about it, if you pick a class, you're obviously going to get more powerful because you get more abilities in one class. But if you multi-class, for example, and you roll a natural 20 to hit, okay, you get a critical hit, cool. Now you get a critical hit, and on top of that, you get to do a cool action. You get to do something extra. So yeah, that's my current thought there. There are 6 traits. I wanted the traits to be a bit less. There's kind of a bioessentialism in it. There's a bit of eugenicsiness to it. So what I kind of want to do is have the thing of a common person is 0 in every stat. That is a common person. Common person is 0 in every stat. We're not going to include any ancestry or anything like that. It's just you as an individual are 0 in every stat. Common person. If you train a specific aspect, then you will get a better number. If you let it go the opposite direction, you might get a negative number. So physique isn't strength. Strength is part of physique. Physique is basically going, you have trained your body. It could be to endure a very long run. Well, you could call it endurance. There's a slight difference. How do I want to put this? Physique is different to strength because if you've ever watched people, if you've ever gone to a gym, you'll often hear the phrase, there are 2 kinds of things you go to the gym for. One is your cardiovascular, one is your muscular. One is you lifting weights, you're trying to get your muscles physically stronger, so they do more of that thing more powerfully. But then there's other aspects of training your physique. It's how quickly can you sprint? How long can you keep that sprint going? If you think of things strength would normally be called upon in a skill check, it's how high can you jump? How long can you jump? Can you do a sprint? Can you do a run? Not just lifting and pushing. Which is why I'm calling it physique. Agility is slightly different. Agility is largely around your hand-eye coordination. It's less how well you've trained your muscles. It's how you've trained your reaction, your speed, your kind of, as I said, hand-eye coordination. It's the finite movements. Yeah. As I said, it's something I want to. All of this is experimental. None of this is set in stone. But I've gone with here is the core test, and as I write the core test rules, I was like, okay, I want to do mark of prowess. I want to do inspired. What does that mean? Okay, here's some ideas. As I write them out, I'll have more ideas, and we'll see where we go from there. So then you have endurance. Endurance is like constitution. It's how much can your body take. Endurance is, yeah, it's how much you can keep running, how much you can keep swimming, how much you can keep something going prolonged, but it's also resisting a poison. It's also resisting the temperature. It's how much can your body take before it fails. Knowledge is replacing intelligence, because the problem is, if you say intelligence, that makes me think IQ scores, which are dodgy psychology as fuck. Knowledge is purely there for what it says. Knowledge is what you know. The higher your knowledge, the more you spend reading. That's the way I kind of look at it, is all 6 words are, how much time have you spent doing X? Physique is training at, say, a gym. Agility is perhaps doing a specific sport. Endurance is you train endurance. There are endurance swimmers whose entire thing is, I'm going to learn to dive into a pool of ice cold water and not get fucked up by that. Knowledge is, how much have you spent studying? How much knowledge can you recall? How good are you at using your knowledge and the facts in the room about you to piece together a new fact, a new truth. Intuition is you taking your experience. Unfortunately, knowledge and intuition, the way I describe them, they do have a slight intermingling point, but I think they work slightly better than intelligence and wisdom, in that knowledge tells you exactly what it is. It isn't my IQ's better than you, it's I have a better recollection of knowledge. Intuition is I have a very good ability to take my experiences, apply them to the present, notice things, and do the calculation in my head. Determination is replacing charisma. Now, here's the thing. If you, and this is where I'm going to make a controversial take, I think. So, charisma, what are its uses? Obviously, charisma is intimidation, deception, persuasion, performance. And also it's used to power a paladin's magic, bardic magic, warlock magic. And the way I have always viewed charisma, it isn't how pretty you are, it isn't how performative you are. Like, those can be part of it, but in the end of the day, charisma is kind of this. Charisma, if you distill it down, is in at least how I manage to view why magic comes from charisma, is it is magic that pulls from your sense of self. It is your confidence, your image of who you are and what you are capable of. And it is that then powers your abilities. So I use determination instead of charisma because it is your confidence in yourself. It is the you can put forward. It's the stat that's about kind of you, your self-image, your self-love, whatever. And I'm currently trying to work out how you generate it. My current thought is you roll a d6 and -2, so a 6 is a 4. Yeah. And I kind of went, what word kind of... Because the problem with charisma is, while it is a force of will, a force of self-esteem, personality, it doesn't often get portrayed that way. Lots of people hear the word charisma and go, oh, that's how pretty you are. And it's like, no, that's not what I want at all. So to stop that conversation, I just went, it's determination. It is your sense of you, your confidence, your self-esteem, your personality. All of that is your determination. Which, some areas, it might seem like weaker. It might be like, oh, why are you persuading me with your determination? In other cases, like intimidation, it's like, yeah, I can see how you would use determination to do an intimidation check. But yeah, for generation, I don't want this weird... I don't get it. I don't know why D&D has the weird number system that it does. It doesn't make sense to me. What we're going to do is, it's roll the d6 -2. If you roll a 6, you get a 4 in the stat. If you get a 1, you get a -1 to the stat. To be fair, characters at -2 in stats was always a bit odd in D&D, and yeah. So your character will be between -1 and a 4 in any stat. So, and then I'm thinking maybe you get a free reroll, one free reroll of any of the 6 die, and what I might let you do is take additional rerolls. But for every additional reroll, you have to pick a stat, and once you have picked all your numbers, you have to apply -1s to those stats based off the number of times you rerolled. So it turns into kind of a risk-reward kind of thing. And then we'll let you point by. You always get to point by and stuff. So then there are character skills. Now this is where we have the character skill bonus. So you can choose to learn a skill. You learn them in character generation. What basically happens is the game guide will say, I want you to make a... so basically how the test should work is the game guide describes the situation. The player may say, I want to do an action in that situation, or the game guide describes something, at which point the phrase, make an X trait check occurs. Now, if the character believes, or if the game guide believes that a skill would be useful here, you can get your skill bonus if you've learnt it and add that to your roll. It kind of is a to and fro, and there is a recommended trait for each of these, but it is not mandatory. So, for example, acrobatics, we recommend agility. Athletics, we would recommend physique. There are a couple where it's kind of dual. Where's one where it's dual? Yeah, so driving, so moving a vehicle, we would recommend physique or agility, depending on the kind of vehicle. So yeah, you've got acrobatics, animal handling. I have actually looked at multiple games, multiple RPGs for ideas for skills, and to be honest, they all pretty much do the same thing as D&D, even the ones that like way predate 5th edition. You have athletics, you have cosmology. Now here is something important I should note. There are no saving throws. A saving throw, because there is no saving throw, there is no skill roll, there is none of this. What you would view as a saving throw would be a trait test. But there are certain skills we recommend to be an equivalent. So say someone was trying to push you. You would in D&D go, that's a strength saving throw. In here you would go, that is a trait test with the athletics skill. For a dexterity saving throw, you would go, that is a agility trait test with the acrobatic skill. There are some specific skills that are definitely made for this. Where are they? I've said this now. Stamina. Stamina is made basically to resist stuff, resist venoms, resist poisons. Focus is effectively all of the mental saving throws. The way I view it is I could make 3 separate skills. It made more sense just to have focus. And focus is you basically going, if, say, it was a knowledge saving throw, it's you are pulling upon your knowledge to undo the fabric of the spell's creation. You're looking at the casting circle or the hand gestures, and you know how to do counter movements to counteract it. If it was an intuition, you would be using your experience to go, I know how this is an illusion. This is an illusion. This doesn't work like this. If it was charisma, it's your... if it's determination, you're going... Well, you're just using your determination to just push through and go, no, I have my self-discipline and my willpower to get through this. Cosmology is new. Cosmology was born from the fact that I hate the Arcana skill. I'm sorry, people who like the Arcana skill. The Arcana skill is dumb because because basically here's how knowledge works. You have history, Arcana, nature, religion. Religion is gods, devils, demons, servants, stuff to do with those planes. Nature was annals, maybe monstrosities if you're lucky. And then you had Arcana, which was anything weird, supernatural, and all of magic. So how I've done it is cosmology is the metaphysical workings of creation. It is the other realms, that is part of cosmology. How the stars work, that's cosmology. If it is kind of magical knowledge, but it's magical knowledge to do with kind of the fabric and making of the universe, is cosmology. If you are wanting to know just how a spell works or what a magical creature is, that's just magical law. Deception is deception, diplomacy is diplomacy. Driving is, I don't like the idea of item and vehicle proficiency, so now it's just you get a driving skill. Empathy is what used to be insight. I think empathy is a better name for a skill. It kind of gets the thing across more. You're using your intuition and your experience to kind of connect with someone. Here's the other knowledge skill I hated: history. Because you know what would happen? You go to a place, a name is mentioned. What do you roll? You roll history. You see a statue. Who's that? That's a history roll. A family name's been mentioned. It's a history roll. If it was to do with basically people, places, politics, families, heraldries, names, historical events, all of it was under history. And I kind of get why it was under history. But I think it's better called just general knowledge, because that's what it is. It is general trivia knowledge about the world that the people are in. Intimidation's intimidation, investigation. Linguistics is one I added, which is basically if you are not fluent in a language, you're trying to recall and understand and use your understanding of languages to try and partially understand the communication that is happening to you. Medicine is medicine. There's a reason melee weapons, ranged weapons, and unarmed attacks are here. Effectively, as I said, I'm not using proficiencies. Kind of, sort of. It's complicated. So there are skills, but the skills are something that if you need to use it, you may be trained in. Nature is nature, perception, performance. Occultism, I'm not 100% on the name yet. It's basically what takes the place of religion because it's to do with faith in its multiple forms. But also supernatural entities that faiths may interact with. Religion just didn't seem right, but neither does occultism. I'm going to have to go into my dictionary of old words and see if I can find something that better kind of suits. It's this awkward thing where it's trying, yeah, maybe theology. I did consider theology. Yeah, it's an odd one. The main problem is I don't want to have it default. The one thing I want to do when I'm working on the religion, anything to do with religion, is I'm really trying to not have it just be, hi, I come from England. We're a Christian nation. I'm going to shove Christian ideas into my games design. Skullduggery is anything a thief would do: sleight of hand, pickpocket, swap your cards to fix a game in a gambling. Mythology might do it. It could, yeah, mythology could. As I said, this is one where I'm just gonna have to think about it. Stamina, as I said, stealth, survival. Technology is new. This just means if your setting has, to be fair, every setting has technology. Just because we would not consider it technology in our current age. Like, gunpowder was the equivalent of computer technology at the time of its invention. Like, technology is always there. Basically, the technology skill is for any technology or techno-magical devices. Its key thing is it's always there for like the person who wants to be the cutting edge crafting character but doesn't want to always use magic. As I said, I think I've got a good range of skills. As I said, I've added a couple in currently. So yeah, basically you get your skill bonus if you're trained in a skill. If you're a master, you get to double it. So currently it works as proficiency bonuses. With level 0, there is a reason for level 0. I'm trying with level 0. My current thought is level 0 is theoretically how I might advise people get into the game. So currently, the way the game works is you're level 1, and at level 1, you have a terrible experience, and so you're encouraged to jump to level 3. because you have stupidly low hit points. You have basically a single action you can do and you're going to spam it. That there's very little class option there. So my current thought is character level 0 is what you would use if you're getting someone into the game. They don't pick a class. That's very important. They do not pick a class at level 0. All they have is some skills and the basic mechanics. My recommendation would probably be either set it in a magic school or set it in a guild hall, or you set it in kind of a thing where someone would learn and you basically go, okay, here's what we're going to do. This session is going to be practice fight. Have a fight, get the vague sense of mechanics. Then at level 1, you pick a class and you start to get into something cool. I'm gonna look at the skill range. I'm partially tempted to actually alter it so it's level 0 is level 1, 1 is level 2, 5 is level 3, 9 is level 4, then it's 14 is level 5, plus 5. I was tempted to try and get it to plus 5. Just to make the, if I do legendary, is triple it a bit easier. I've got to try and work it out. Here are some new rules. Yeah, basically. But what it means is if you start a game at level 1, it will hope. Basically, level 0's what you say, we're going to do it, where you will get a bit of training to learn the game. Then level 1 is, okay, you're actually starting the game with a class. Level 0 is basically, therefore, I just want to run the game without any classes or weird mechanics. So some new rules, because D&D doesn't include these, and I think this is useful. Learning skills. Obviously, in character generation, you get to learn some skills for free. That's part of your class and background. You can then learn some in play, and how it basically works is either you do it in downtime, and I'm going to be writing some downtime rules because D&D does not have a downtime system. This makes D&D incredibly awkward to run at times, so I'm going to make up my own with Blackjack and Hookers. It will not necessarily use those two things, but a downtime system will exist, is what I'm trying to say. The other thing you can do is, I also wanted it that in play, you can learn, if you have a sufficient amount of time and you and the game guide agree to it, you could do this, because the other things I want to do is, as you could tell by the chapters, unlike the basic rules, which have like a paragraph on exploration and travel and a paragraph on socializing, I want them to be equal to combat. They both should be a chapter's worth of rules. There should be rules on socializing. There should be rules on how we use tests in socializing, how relationships work on socializing, how interactions work in socializing. You should have rules for exploration. What if a dungeon master wants to do, here is a jungle, we need you to explore it? What if you're just doing, here are 2 towns I want you to travel? Giving more in-depth rules to allow that to happen, but also giving the option to say, and I think this will be included in generally because there is a bit here with custom skills, every chapter will be the same. If you have a system you think does this better, use it. If you have a social system that works better than my social system, you should damn well use it. You should also consider publishing it and going, yo, you should use my social system. Like, hey, here's a module for this core rule set where we replace that system because I think I do it better. Same with travel and exploration. But one of the things is something you can do while traveling or during prolonged periods of the game is happening in session. We're not in downtime. You're doing something, but you're not really doing anything. We're just jumping time periods as you're just traveling or something like that. Is a character can learn a skill. If they have material, so they might need to get some books, they might need a teacher, and they need time to focus. My recommendation is at least 3 hours. If this happens, when they next sleep, they get to make a trait test. The trait test target, the test target value is equal to 15 minus the number of hours spent studying. So the more you spend studying, the lower the target number you have to roll. And you roll the trait test, and it should be appropriate to the skill that they are learning. And on a failed test, they make no progress, but they get to add half the number of hours they spent studying rounded up to the hours they spent studying the next time they study for that skill, falling forwards. Yeah, yeah, I hope to have some stuff there. On a successful test, they then roll a d100. If they haven't done any before, they just note down the number. If they have already done some study progress towards that skill, they add the D100 result to that study progress they already have. And if the study progress for that skill is over 100, they've learnt it. They are now knowledgeable of that skill. So they could get it in a single study session if they roll super high, or they could not at all. It could take multiple sessions. And if they are learning on the roll, they can only learn a skill. You cannot master a skill. If you want to master a skill, you have to do it during downtime, or they have to learn from someone who is already a master. Specifically another character, which is when we get to teaching skills. If a character has learned a skill, they can teach a character to learn a skill. If they have mastered a skill, they can then teach another character to master. Well, I wanted something that kind of it gave a sense of progression, but it wasn't just here's the skill, but it also wasn't do downtime and hope that the DM does down. It's kind of something it gives something to do, and it gives something that does have a result. It kind of has a level of progression that then ends in a reward. So how it basically works is the character, when they're being taught a learn skill, gets to double the time taken bonus. So if they spend 3 hours, their target number for their test would only be a 9, because they would be counted as having studied for 6 hours. The teacher also makes the same trait test roll as the student. The result of their trait test, however, is additional study progress for the student. So say the student rolls a 9, which means they succeed their trait test. The teacher then rolls a 7. The student then rolls a D100. They will add 7 to their D100, and that is the total study progress for that day. And then if a teacher is teaching a character to master a skill, the time isn't doubled and the teacher can't give extra study. It's what the teacher is doing is giving the other character the ability to learn to become a master of the skill while being on the road. The other thing is they have to get to so once they've hit 100 to be learned, they then need an additional 200 to become a master. It takes longer to be a master, and you have to be trained to be a master. But the advantage is you then get to double your skill bonus for that skill. You have mastered that skill. And you then gain the ability to teach other characters that skill to a mastery level. And then custom skills is basically me going, while too many skills can lead to bloat, if, as the game guide, your setting, narrative, or the choices of your players lead to something worthy being a character skill not presented in the list, you should add that skill to the list. Yeah. But the key thing is you're getting to double your skill value for that skill any time you can argue that skill is being used in a trait check. So it's very useful to have. I just think it's very interesting because there's no real way. I think D&D maybe had a feat where you could do it, but there was no real way to get expertise in a skill. I think this is more interesting because what you get is a chance for the table to role play off each other. Because all you can do as a GG is go, you are travelling 5 days to Wrexham from Oakley-Moor. You all have books on you. The players the previous session bought a load of books. One of them bought a blackboard. Okay? Over those 5 days, you can go to the players, okay, what do you want to do over those 5 days? Because how I'm probably going to recommend the exploration thing is, if you're travelling, tell them how many days it's going to be. The players then get to pick what they get, then tell you what they're going to do. You then, as the game guide, can make some rolls, look at some tables. You can decide, based off what you want to do, how much you interfere with their plan. But in theory, you could just let the players have their plan. If they go, I want to spend 5 days learning, you can let them have 5 days learning and just go, right, I would like you to role play. Give me a kind of sense for each day. Let's role play a bit how you're doing, how you're learning. You made this much study progress. How are you changing it the next day? How you're changing how you're studying? Do you notice an improvement in how you're doing this, that, the other? It's kind of, you are promoting this thing to the characters, and they are all getting to learn from each other and get role play out of it, which then actually would then mean that the travel is easier for the game guide because they're just out there going, right, the players are learning. Yes, they are going to be more powerful when approaching skill challenges. Okay. But if you look at it as the table has come together to share resources, to share knowledge, to focus on improving each other, out of it you've also gotten a good few role play moments, I think that is worth it. Like, going, you know a skill or you have mastered a skill is worth that player on player interaction. So then we have general play, where I want to go over marks of fate, inspired. To be honest, general play will probably end up being initial principles and all this stuff. Then socializing relationship, I want to, as I said, I want to go in depth on how you do relationships, how NPC to PC interactions happen. I want to kind of flesh that out because that's something D&D was about. Same with exploration travel. I just want to really hit these things on the head and go, right, let's make some concrete rules. You may have better rules, at which point take that chapter, rip it out, and plug in your own. And your game will probably be better for it. But the nice thing is, the nice thing is, there is an option for those who don't want to do, or aren't games designers and don't want to do that. There's a bit more, because that's the big problem with D&D. D&D put a lot on the dungeon master to make up these rules. And yeah, no, that's what I'm aiming for. I'm aiming for the reason I'm doing little things like calling you a game guide instead of a game master, the reason I'm doing these little things is it's all to kind of break the boundaries and just make it, the table works together to make these narratives happen, to focus on each other as characters interacting rather than it just being like number go up. So combat, I want to make theatre of the mind and tabletop. I want there to be rules that if you want to have a mini and you want to have everyone as a mini and you've got the grids and you want to be super tactical, you can do that. But I also want it that you could do theatre of the mind. We can abstract out a lot of it so that if you are using theatre of the mind, you're not sat there going, wait, was the character 500 feet away? I cast fireball. Oh shit, I didn't know my friend was there. You didn't say he was in 10 feet of the monster. Stuff like that. I kind of want the ability for both things to be able to be done. I'm tempted. So Fate had a fun system, and I'm tempted to use it, where you got so Fate. So how a lot of Fate works is you would roll some d6. You would get plus and minuses based on the result on the die. You would then get a numerical amount, which is +1, +2, +3, +4, and you could call on these narrative aspects to buff the roll. One thing you could do if you took damage was you could go, right, I am going to reduce the damage by this amount if I take a consequence. And a consequence is one of these narrative aspects that you can use to give yourself a bonus. But what it meant was the game master could call on that to do more damage or get a better hit roll against you. And the consequence, depending on, it could be like a broken rib, stuff like that. So it's kind of, I kind of like that because it gives the thing for the people who like doing the injury tables and everything. But it's the player has gone, I would like to use a consequence to reduce the damage to stop my character dying. And we both now have a narrative thing that I have to work on to deal with. And depending on the severity of the consequence, depends how easy it is to be removed. I like the sound of that. I like the feel of that. Because the one thing I'm probably going to do is I'm actually going to be very controversial. I'm not going to include XP. There will be no XP in this game. What there will be is milestone. What D&D refers to as milestone XP, which is just when you feel the narrative beat has been hit, you can level up. And that works then because basically how consequence used to work was after a session, this consequence leaves. After a few sessions, this consequence leaves. After a narrative event has finished, this consequence leaves. So what you could effectively do is one of the consequences, when you level up, this narrative beat has been hit, this consequence will go. Effectively, you have spent enough time dealing with it, trying to probably spend some of your rests giving it its appropriate treatment to then it go. And then we might give you some magic that allows you to reduce the level of a consequence so it goes earlier, and maybe an equivalent to greater restoration is just you can get rid of it. But what it effectively means is before you get to that spell, there is a period of time where you have narrative consequences. And what I'd probably say is there's a period of time where you cannot use a spell to cure it. What this means is for at least that combat, that narrative thing. Because once they hit 9th level, they could throw around greater restoration like crazy. But what you can do is you can go, okay, we'll let that happen, but you can't use it in that combat. So for that combat, the game guide has the ability to call upon this condition to just affect you. This is the thing that inspired me by Abyssal Brew. It's freaking amazing. If I go ahead with this, what I really want to do is I want to ask Abyssal Brew if I can use this, modify it, because I just really like the idea of making. I really like the idea of making things accessible, and I really want narrative theatre of the mind games to be accessible in this kind of game. Okay, here we go. Here's the bit that's going to be weird. Okay, so I want to update classes in D&D. I want to run and I want to make them better than they were before. How am I going to do this, you ask? Well, firstly, every class is going to have a in combat and out of combat roll a 20. Here's what you can do when inspired. Depending how I make marks of fate work, I might go every class as a unique mark of fate effect. So that's that. What I will then do is so my current thought is that your background will give you some hit points, which is why level 0 characters can work. And then your class will give you hit points. And what this means is a level 1 character has actually quite a lot of hit points to play with. So they don't just die to the first thing that thwacks them. so you don't get an immediate team. The other things I want to do is give more option mechanics. So what I mean by this is Ranger is the classic example. If we use Ranger as presented in 5e, what I would do is I would go, right, you can pick spellcasting or an animal companion. Now I'm still going to let you use the animal companion subclass. Now why would I do that? Well, the animal companion subclass will either upgrade your animal companion or will allow you to take spellcasting and still have an animal companion. It will be weaker than the upgraded animal companion, sure, but it means you can get effectively a taste of both sides. And that's kind of the things I want to do. I want to do some of this stuff. Cleric, who I'm calling Eternalist for a reason I'll get into in a minute. I want to play with the polytheism idea. I kind of want the idea that you can devote yourself to one god. You can always worship a pantheon. Because the thing is, the reason I'm calling them Eternalist is, one, we're getting rid of the Christianity thing, and two, Eternals are these big concepts. They're gods. They're philosophies, concepts, but they're all powered by faith. Faith goes in, and then they channel that faith to give power back to their followers, who are Eternalists. And Eternalists could serve a pantheon, they can serve philosophy, a concept, whatever. If they serve a pantheon, I want to give them the option to choose to get some minor benefits from some adjacent deities in that pantheon. I'm not sure how I'm going to make that work, but that's what I want to do. Bard, I want to make no longer focus on just music. Artificer, I'm going to make it the Tinkerer, and I don't know quite what I'll do with it. I want it. I'm not sure. I kind of want to make a crafting system, and then once I made the crafting system, we'll make the Tinkerer interact with the crafting system, but not be beholden to it. If that makes sense. They get cool shit without the crafting system. They just are very good with the crafting system. So I need to work out how a crafting system works. Barbarian is going to be the battle channeler. What's the battle channeler do? Why is he a battle channeler? Well, you see, he channels emotions, but he doesn't just channel rage. He can channel grief, sadness, anger, rage, hatred, joy, love. It's an emotion knight. Yes, I've played FF14. Yes, I've played Dark Knight. Yes, I have feelings about that class. Druid is a world speaker. Their thing is they speak to the world. They channel the magics of the world. So I'm probably going to make it that they don't just have to world shape. And then we're going to fuck with world shape. And then we're going to fuck with some other stuff. And we're going to see where we go. What we might have is, like, instead of world shape, you could have a familiar, or you can do something else. What we're ending up with is everyone gets to be a bit like Warlock. Everyone gets to fuck with their class a bit. Fighter will be the warrior, and I want to give them combat stunts as a standard thing, just to make them more interesting. Monk, I don't know what to do yet. Paladin, I don't know what to do yet. Scion, we're just going to copy. We're just going to take my Scion. I've already made a Scion class. We're just going to use that. We'll edit it to actually make sense with this mechanical rule set. But that's the theory. Ranger, you've already heard my thoughts on Ranger. Rogue, I have no idea what I want to do with Rogue. Sorcerer is really cool. And I want to talk about Sorcerer because I'm enthusiastic about Sorcerer. So Sorcerer, I'm super happy about, because Sorcerer is going to be the soul-shaped. It isn't based on your bloodline anymore. It's something more than that. How effectively it works is when you... Because obviously your soul has to exist before it enters your body. And basically during the process of your soul entering your body, either it passed something on its way to the afterlife or another soul on its way to the mortal plane. And some of its essence got transferred to you. And so your soul has a form, a true form that it wishes to be, and it isn't the form it was born into, it's something else, something different. And so as you level through Sorcerer, your physical form alters to better reflect your soul. Warlock is the pack bound. I want to make it very clear that an Eternalist is someone who it will give faith to an Eternal, and the Eternal rewards them with power back. A pact bound is not giving faith. They do not give faith. The pact bound made a deal, and that deal is that they get power in return. And then the wizard is an arcanist. Now the arcanist, I have thoughts about the arcanist. I'm not 100% sure yet. So we're going to quickly jump down to here. So there are 4 kinds of magic. There is cosmic magic. This is the foundation of the universe. This is the magic that arcanists use, bards use. Bards channel the music through their creation. And I use that phrasing very particularly. They channel the music through their creations. How a bard hears the music, because basically the 4 fundamental forces of magic are each felt in a different way. Cosmic, you hear the song of cosmic magic, and it will inspire a bard to create, and through their creations does their magic occur. They channel the music into an object. Now some will channel it straight into music and just basically replay what they hear, but others channel it in more interesting ways. They'll create art, poetry, dance. They'll do something, and that something will still channel the music of creation in its magical form. An artificer channels the music into their creative, because if you think about it, an artificer is also a creative person. They just make inventions. A sorcerer channels the music of creation because it plays to their very soul. A pact bound channels the music of creation, and effectively it is their pact that enables the music to be heard. It is unclear if it's the thing that's allowing them to hear it or the pact itself, the actual act of making a pact, or if the potential was there all along, they didn't realise it until the pact removed whatever was clouding it. And then wizard is obviously wizard. They hear it and they turn music into equations, because those who do not know, you can break down music into mathematical formula. Eternal magic is those entities who act as the source of magic, and they are always powered by faith and belief. So this is the clerics, the paladins. Their magic is rooted from the Eternals. Now, some would say, hold on a second, surely a warlock should be an Eternal caster, and it's like, in theory, yes. That's the interesting question you've got to ask about the metaphysic, is why is that the case? Primal magic is magic tied to the world soul. The world soul you could call an eternal. It is an immortal being, but it exists in the root of the world, and it is that entity that gives the world life, and it is what those who call upon primal magic, rangers and druids call upon. They call upon the world soul. And then you have psychic, which is the thought net, which is what the scions use, it is similar but different to magic, but it is still considered as one of the 4 causes of magic. Just so I can go into it, ancestry, that's what your race was. It gives you some cool features. I've got some ideas how I want to make this work. My current thought is I will generate some pre-made races. Human, elf, dwarf. The usual. Animal kin. That kind of thing. And then you will have the ability to create an ancestry. And effectively, what I'll give is a list of powers you can give, and effectively, you can custom make something. Largely, the physical traits of an ancestry is up to the character. If you are of mixed ancestry, effectively you get to use the custom traits, except you go, okay, if you want to, you can pick between traits of the different family sides. How is it manifested? How is it coming about? You get to pick the aesthetic choices as well of how this mixed ancestry has come about. And then background and relationships. This is where we get interesting. So every character will have a background. Background is going to give you some skills, some languages, some hit points. Basically, a background allows you to be a level 0 character. Whereas a class will give you more specific stuff and let you be a level 1 character. So your background generally will let you have some very basic stuff let you interact the game. And then you have relationships and party dynamics. Now this is where we get this is something where I went, D&D does this thing, I want to take it further because I think we can do more with it. So what I want to do is in D&D personality traits, which you pick 2, an ideal, a bond and a flaw. What I want to do is I want to go, right, you have a concept of your character, something you describe in a sentence. You have a flaw, which you describe in a sentence. You have 2 relationships, and the 2 relationships are with your party. And effectively, what I would get them to do is to kind of go, okay, you might not have formed a party yet, but you might have met each other and interacted with each other, which point go into like this. And then the other thing I want to do is give some more details. So it's like, okay, you can have relationships with other NPCs. You don't have aspects that can be called upon, but what you do have is relationships that you can start with that the DM can play with, and that will go into the social and relationship thing. And then what I'm probably going to do is have a thing where it's relationship with deities or similar entities, and we'll have rules for that. And then what can happen is in combat, if you share a bond aspect with someone, you can both call upon that aspect for a combat bonus or to do cool combo moves. Another thing I'm considering is having a Dynamis-like effect where you get a special move, which again you'll get a generic move to pick upon and a class move to pick upon. And then what I might do is, I know I don't think I really want subclasses to mix with any of that. Yeah, so we have a few things, and then we've got to do magic. I've got to work out how magic works. We've got to work out how downtown work, crafting, other rules. I've got to have some rules for technology, vehicles. How I think it's going to work is basically anything that isn't on land is a boat. Everything is a boat. Spaceship's a boat. Airship's a boat. A boat's a boat. And we'll go from that. And then it's the games corner. So it's session 0. It's basic safety tools. customizing rules, trait tests, when to use them, bestiary. I'm probably going to play test this with a few boss monsters. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have what I like to call the fake Eternals. They're not true Eternals. They're not actually immortal or powered by faith. But what they are is effectively a twisted version of each caster class. So what you have is, yeah, as you see here for tests, we've got zombies, chimera, constructs, and Eternals. And the Eternals are undercasters. So an artificer is kind of like the Borg. A bard is maintained by their works. A cleric and paladin is kind of powered by their faith, or a paladin might be powered by its oath. And then you have druid and ranger, who they're more like an elemental or an animal than person. Sorcerer is like body horror. Warlock is a lich tied to their patron, and then a wizard's just a lich. As a lot of this is based off, okay, how does D&D work? How can we adapt D&D to be more interesting? Again, this isn't... The big thing for me is I want to make my own system, but I also cannot ignore that which has led me to this point, which is a lot of indie RPGs. I mean, you've heard me use aspects of the Fate system, you've heard me mention Age. I want to tear out and do something with the Madness system. I know I might need to look at how New Call of Cthulhu has handled it. I don't think New Call of Cthulhu handled it well, but at least it'll give me some ideas of what not to do. Yeah, everything is me going, here are the games I've played in the past, how can we use them? How can we take the lessons to move forward? And you know, there are some things I can't do because I can't be a one dice game. I can't. That isn't how this game is designed. That isn't how it's going to work. It's also not going to be a skill based game. It's not going to be. There are some things from certain games I can't really look at and go, I want to do that. It's like, I can't. I'm not that game. But what I want to do is make something that it is built upon the foundation of D&D, so that everyone can have a rough idea what to play about. But I want it to still be its own standalone thing. I want it to be a game that looked at its predecessors and went, right, what did you all do well? What did you all do badly? How can we make something that is an ode and a love letter, but is also my own game's design? Which is what we've done. We as you can see, I've begun putting in rules. I've begun putting in things. I have my own design philosophy as to why I've done those things. And I hope people have enjoyed listening to me ranting about my design philosophy and why I've done stuff. Because I think it's very useful for all of us who are interested in TTRPG games to be able to have these conversations of, okay, rather than looking at the mechanics and going, ooh, I don't like this mechanic because X, Y, Z, mathematic probabilities, etc., etc. Instead, I'd like to have us have discussions about the design philosophy, like what was the philosophy that made you choose that aspect? Like some of these are literally just me going, I'm familiar with D20 systems. This is something comfortable, because I know some people have, because I think Matt Colville posted earlier today, a 6-skill system. 6 character attribute system, sorry, and someone was like, oh my god, why are we still using 6 attribute systems? And it's like, actually, I've looked up a lot of the big RPGs. Look up Paranoia, look up Call of Cthulhu. Like, you don't see this at the top of one of my tabs, it's just, pardon me, different RPG rules, and quite a lot have used 6 character stats. I think the biggest one that did was Age, which has about 8, 9. I think Age has too many. It's its problem. Like, it got very granular. I think Age got too granular. too in the weeds. And this is the thing, I'm trying to balance the line between get in the weeds and get that simulationist, and not do that and be simple. I'm trying to get in this middle point. As I said, this is an experiment. I have never designed an entire mechanical set from base principles without any interference of other mechanics. Like, I have made LARPs before, but my LARPs were built using a generic system that other designers before me came, looked at and went, okay, here's the generic system. We'll all design from this system. It was like, yeah, sure. It was great for teaching, but you're still teaching and learning from a base system that's been written on. Here we're trying to go first principles. Yes, it has elements of D&D to it, but the first principle was, the entire principle of this game was, here is a test. Roll a d20, add your character trait. If there are other bonuses, add it. I then went, okay, what's a character trait? We then got the 6 character traits. Okay, what's the source of bonuses? Skills. Most RPGs have skills. Sure. You know, you're going, what's a familiar thing that all RPGs have? All RPGs have skills. Okay, let's take that, add it in. Okay, how does a skill give you a bonus? We're going to give you a skill bonus. How do you get better at a skill? Well, you could master it. You could be legendary at it. Okay, now we need to define the concept of mastery, master and legend. Okay, we have fall, and then I went, I like the idea of falling forward. Okay, how are we going to make falling forward happen? Well, when you get a 1, you get a mark of fate. Cool. Now I need to define what is a mark of fate. I now need to define what is a 20. We're using critical hits. Okay. So there's going to be a hit at some point. So we're going to need a skill tied to that. And you can see now where this is going. You can see the progression, logical dots as it goes. Okay, you've written this thing. How do you solve it? Well, I want to use this mechanic. Okay, now how does that mechanic work? What implications does that mechanic have for the wider system? And that's how this has gone. It's just gone down. It's just wider implication, wider implication. I've mentioned when I was doing learning skills, okay, when you're traveling, I didn't even think about it. My brain just went, while you're traveling, that's when you're going to do this in the active phase. Okay. Not when you're in downtime. Well, I've now promised you downtime, and I've promised you traveling. So traveling, we better make a part of this game, and we better put rules in to make it a part of this game. And you can see now, as I'm describing, as we go forward. Other bits is me going, I really want to do this thing. For example, Barbarian. For about 6 months now, I've wanted to make it more than just rage. Because I find Barbarians very boring. And I think what make it less boring is if you started to play with, what if it isn't just rage? What if we play with the concept of emotions as a whole and how they impact a character and where mechanically they go? And then it went to, oh shit, we have something. Let's play with this thread. How can we improve other classes? I mean, Sorcerer, if you look at Sorcerer, this is really an evolution of what I did with the modern day subclass design. When I went, okay, I want to make a Sorcerer who's all about the soul doesn't match the body. We're going to make it more machine-like. You're going to go full transhumanism. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where this goes, and I hope you all enjoy going through this with me, because this is basically what we're going to be doing for a while. Is this in the werewolf game? Once the werewolf game is done, it's basically going to be this. Because here's the thing: once I have a system, I can write things for that system. We have the horror adventures; we can write them for the system. We have Shattered Hearts that we wrote a while back. We'd rewrite that for this system. Once we have stuff, we can write a system. Sorry, once we have a system, we can write things for that system. Pardon me. So, yeah. But I'm going to finish it there because I'm getting tired and I need to get ready for work tomorrow. So, let's have a look. I hope this has been interesting. I hope people have enjoyed hearing me ramble like an absolute loon about random shit. Yeah. Okay. So, what is it? It's just chatting. Okay, let's go raid. So, I'd like to thank everyone for coming and everyone for joining. And we will see you in the next time.